Okay.
That's very important. All right, it's recording. Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining our GSA Leadership webinar. Today we have the Division of Distance Learning with Dr. Florence Martin, who is the current president, and Dr. Tanya Dusa, who is the past president. I would let them introduce themselves to you. I'm Lucas Vasconcelos. I'm the GSA liaison for DDL.
Thank you, Lucas. I'll go ahead and get started. So first thing I had to clarify was I'm not from UNC. I'm from UNCC. So UNC is University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, and I'm at University of North Carolina, Charlotte. So Chapel Hill folks are probably not going to be happy if I put you.
Oh, sorry about that.
No, that's okay.
There's no W for Wilmington.
Yeah, it's W for Wilmington. Yeah, everything has the alphabet added to it. So I used to be at Wilmington, and then the W became Charlotte. Again, as Lucas introduced, my name is Florence Martin. I graduated from Arizona State University with my doctorate in educational technology in 2005, and then I worked in the corporate world for a little bit, consulted a little, and then realized I wanted to try academia, and so taught at Wilmington for 7 years before my move to Charlotte, and so I'm finishing my 4th year here in Charlotte, seven years in academic teaching, and I'm very happy with the decision I made. And so I am an associate professor right now. Hopefully, the title will change in fall, so that's a good thing. And I also direct the Instructional Systems Technology program here at Charlotte. We have a grad cert and a master's in education. We don't have a doctoral program yet, but we are working on a plan to establish concentrations. And I primarily research in the area of, online learning environments, designing and facilitating online learning environments, and that's what, really drew me to DDL. And I'll tell you more about myself later.
Thanks, Florence. My name is Dr. Tanya Dusa, and I'm an assistant professor of learning sciences here at the University of Idaho. That's my I, not Illinois, further west. I graduated from the University of Georgia in 2013 with my PhD in learning design and technology. And I took my first assistant professor position at the University of Wyoming. I left there last spring to come over here to U of I. Here at U of I am the secondary science education methods coordinator. I'm also the researcher for the Dousay Center for Innovation and Learning, which means that I have my hands in lots of different areas. If you were to ever look at my narrative or my research agenda, I use a Venn diagram to describe the different outlets of my research work. At the centerpiece, it's design. So you might be asking, why am I not in D&D? Why am I in DDL? A lot of what I do is in the online realm, whether it is research or teaching. So even though design is the center point, a lot of my work rests in the online realm of work. In fact, one of our big projects with the Dousay Center right now is looking at online education resources and open education resources and the differences between what K-12 and university faculty are looking at and using and infusing right now. But other than that, I do a lot of design preparation work. I am launching a new series of courses here looking at online course development for diverse learners. So getting access to for our students to international populations. In this case, we have 2 clients who will be working with that class, do a lot of service learning. One of our clients is based in Togo, a country of northern Western Africa. It's directly to the west of Ghana, if you're looking at a map of the African continent. The other clients, there's 2 clients actually, and they're down in Nicaragua. So agricultural education and literacy education fall under those realms. But today, we're here to talk more about DDL and Division of Distance Learning and why you might consider getting active with DDL and how you can get active with DDL. With that, Lucas?
Correct, yes. So the webinar will be divided into 2 parts. The first one, I'll ask a few questions that I prepared ahead of time. And then the second part, participants can ask any questions. You can either type them into the chat or use your mic and ask the questions to Dr. Dousay and Dr. Martin. All right?
So, Lucas,
yes.
Before we get started, since there's only 3 of them logged in, can we quickly ask them to introduce themselves, just for us to know where they are from?
Sure, that sounds like a good idea. Does anybody wants to go first?
Sure, and I'll go ahead and even start my video. I'm Kay Novak. I'm a doctoral student at the University of Colorado, Denver. And I'm also been an instructional designer for the last 10 years, a little bit south of where Dr. Dousay was. I'm at Front Range Community College. So I'm very interested in this. I've been doing online learning for 10 years. My interest areas, OER, culturally relevant pedagogy, immersion, disorienting, dilemma. I just finished my first year, so you can tell I have not narrowed it down yet. But thanks a lot.
Awesome, welcome. Who would like to go next?
I can go a second. So my name is Meghna Zhu. I'm from Indiana University. This is my third year, and I'm going to start my fourth year soon in fall. And I'm working on my dissertation now because my dissertation is also generally related to the online instructional design. So I think the DDL is my main kind of.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Pauline would like to introduce yourself.
Testing?
Mm-hmm.
Can you hear me?
Hear. Yes.
We can hear. She just muted herself. Okay, I think she's typing in.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Okay. We can hear it actually. Yeah. Okay, we can just read it. Yeah. If you want to go ahead and get started.
Okay. So the first question I have to Dr. Martin and Dr. Dousay is, what drew you to AECT and DTL?
Do you want to go first?
I can go first with this one.
Okay.
What initially drew me to AECT specifically, and Lucas will be able to identify with this, the graduate program at the University of Georgia requires that you join AECT as a graduate student, and that's where we're all expected to get our foot in the door, if you will, as a professional organization. Like many graduate students, I started in GSA because it's the safe space where graduate students can ask the silly questions of one another and not feel like they're so silly. But within that realm, I began to try to find my own identity. And in doing so, I found myself in DDL and teacher education because those were the two realms that I operate in the most. What I love about distance learning as a division of AECT, we literally have members working with every age group in every context, using every technology. So as a division, we see ourselves as a large umbrella. We do a lot of work with design and development. We do a lot of work with teacher education because now we can talk about online K-12 prep. Or are we just teaching our classes online? We do work with emerging learning technologies because maybe we're doing something with immersive and virtual realities at a distance. And that's what really caught my attention with DDL. The other thing that I noticed back when all of the divisions were likely to host a lunch at the convention, which many have moved away, in case you're wondering, a gallon of coffee at a conference hotel usually costs about $1,000.
Wow.
So that's a really good reason not to ask members to pay $40 for a teeny little lunch. And one of the trends that you've seen where some divisions have combined or they've cut out a formal luncheon altogether because it's a lot of money to ask people to pay. But I wandered into the end of the DDL luncheon one year, and everyone was so, like, they didn't know who I was. They were so inviting. Here, come and sit with us. Tell us what you're working on, which you could say that about all of AECT, but I really felt like I was able to connect with folks and that it didn't matter at the time that I wasn't an expert in this little bitty piece of distance learning, that we were so inviting. And that made it a fantastic opportunity to learn more about who was working on what and how and where and why. Florence?
Yeah, thank you, Tanya. Yeah, exactly similar story. You know, I was at Arizona State. So Arizona State had a doctoral program in educational technology when like in the early 2000s. Since then, they no longer have a PhD in EdTech, but right now it's an interdisciplinary PhD program. So when I was there, you had no choice. You were expected to go to AECT. We had Howard Sullivan, James Klein, Willie Sevigny. Dr. Sevigny is still there. So 2003 was my first AECT. I was finishing up my master's and just started my doctorate. It was at Anaheim, and it was a great experience. And since then, I've never turned back. And I've also tried out so many other conferences, because we have so many tons in our field. But AECT is always like family. It felt like the professional family. That I always joke around saying I'm going to go meet my professional family. That's what I tell them when I go to AECT. And since 2003, it's been about 15 years, but I've benefited from a variety of ways, which we will talk about in later. So my first stop at AECT was not DDL. I hung out with the MPD folks, the Multimedia Production Division. They used to be called MPD. Now they are called as DELT, which is the Emerging Learning Technologies. So, based on your research interests or courses that you teach, you kind of get drawn to a division. And it's hard to be in very closely involved in too many divisions. And so that's where I made my first stop, because I used to teach all the multimedia design and development courses at Wilmington. And they are a much smaller division, so it was easy to run for office, and so I served as a president for them, I think in 2011, 2012, and then since then I moved schools, and I started doing a lot more asynchronous online learning research, and so directly was aligned to my research goals. Also, strategically, I teach online, I research on online learning environments, and I also would do a lot of service on online learning. So I said, okay, it'll be great to run for office for DDL, and it would be a very well aligned service. So when we put our dossier together, I had to show my alignment between teaching, research, and service, and mine was like really straight. It was perfect. So I ran for office, and I won, and it's been an excellent group of folks to hang out with. And DDL is such an established division compared to some of the smaller ones. So I just had to come in and keep following what others had done before me. And of course, we have some new initiatives too. So I think it's been an excellent couple of years, and I still have to serve for another year as the past president next year. But I've enjoyed every minute of it.
Awesome, great answers, very insightful. So what do you do in the capacity of your leadership positions as presidents and past presidents in the division?
I can start, and then Tonia probably has a lot more, because she's done a lot more, 3 years in this role, in her service to DDL. So with DDL, so 2016, ours is a 3-year term. Again, we have a lot of leadership positions. So both Tonia and I served as the president-elect president, and I will be serving as a past president next year. So we have a 3-year term. So the first year, usually you come in and you do conference planning. So that's your dedicated role, but it's busy and it's intense, but a lot to learn from, and we have leaders who give us very good guidance. So we just follow their lead, follow their direction. And so with conference planning, we update and send out the call for proposals, and once proposals come in, we have to make sure we assign reviewers when reviews come in, and then you go through them and you make the decisions on the cutoff, what to accept, what not to accept, and then you package the sessions, and then the program is in place. And then so that's the first year pretty much. And then the second year is what I've done over the last year is, my main responsibility is I run the board meetings. So DDL has board meetings every month. I think we meet second Monday of every month. So we have an agenda, and so we are pretty organized in that, and we make sure that all our updates are discussed. And as presidential responsibility, we are all able to pick up different projects that we want to do. And so I've done 3 projects so far. One is, you probably have seen me post ads for webinars that I've hosted. So in the last 5 months, I've hosted 5 webinars. 5 webinars in the area of, it's in the area of online learning and teaching, but then I picked the title, Using Research to Inform Online Course Design and Facilitation Strategies. And Meena, you presented with Dr. Bonk on our first one. And so we've had some really neat, webinars. And so all our webinars are recorded. That's something that I wanted to share. And I will put in the link in the chat window in case if you've not had a chance to attend all of them. And even for those of you, if you might be watching on the recording, you have access to those. So a couple of other projects quickly to share, that I've done. Is Lucas can talk about this, because Lucas is a GSA rep, and Lucas worked on building a platform where we can connect researchers together. We have not disseminated this quite a bit, but we will be in the next few days. So it's we created a Google form. There's a lot of researchers across AECT, but then if you want to identify somebody who you want to work with based on research interests and different expertise, so you could like put in a request, and we're going to try and match this up. So that's something, Lucas actually takes the credit, but I worked with Lucas on that. And thirdly, again, I can't take the credit for this. I don't do all of it, but then we also, as a division, we give out a lot of awards. So we have award coordinators, and we give out awards like the Crystal Award, which is for best online, online multimedia based course. And then there's a distance learning practice award. And then we also give out awards for journal articles. So we have a big team who works on, with that call and reviewing proposals. And so that's another big part of DDL too. I'm going to stop there.
The past president has one required role only, and that is to put together the election slate for the next year. But like any volunteer position, especially in a leadership role, it's what you make of it. Historically, and I can try to give you the big picture overview of what we've done in DDL and how we try to keep the organization and our particular SIG of the organization moving forward. When you run for office, you want to have something in mind of what your goals are based off of the needs of that particular division. In our case, I had communicated with a number of past leaders and a few members trying to get a feel for what the needs were. So when I ran, I already had in mind what my goals would be if elected. Once elected, my priority, like Florence explained, was on convention planning. So I planned the Vegas convention a couple of years ago, and you have to exercise all of those great organizational skills that you learn throughout your life and career as a student and a professional as you work through that process, and deciding cut scores based off of the reviews and maintaining some sort of inter-reviewer reliability as much as you can within our system. As I transitioned from past president into president, at that point, it was time for me to enact those goals that I started with. And in this case, I had my goals. So Florence broke down the 3 projects she worked on. I started off by wanting to redesign our logo as a division. The globe logo that we used for so long really didn't convey anything about us. It was an attempt to try to convey a message of distance, but being a design educator and teaching logo design in my classes, I always struggled with our logo as a division. So we went out and put out a big call. We worked with individual designers, answered their questions. So the logo that you see now in our Facebook group and on many of our various outlets, it's a really cool book that indicates the learning piece, and then it has a Wi-Fi signal for kind of the universal distance component. Lou Ding, a postdoc at Arizona State, was actually the winning designer of that logo. I'll also mention that she was one of the few designers, it's about to get loud in here, sorry. She was one of the few designers who asked us questions as a board. What did we not like about the existing logo? Which I thought was a great move on a designer's part. The other priority, I had 3 like Florence. That was my first. My other priority was conducting a needs assessment, following what some other divisions had done, being able to gather some information about what our members wanted. And I was able to take that survey, much with Lucas's assistance. You'll see where he was actually developing his own leadership trajectory in the division. He reached out to me in advance and asked what he could help with. So I pulled him into these projects. So he helped me with putting together, Kat Jackson was part of that as well at Oklahoma. We did the survey, and then they helped me write up the report of the results. And then I handed that report to Florence and said, here you go, Madam President. Here's something for you to work with for your tenure as president. The third and final goal that I had is finally being realized now that I am past president. And we will be making an announcement on June 1st about a new publication opportunity through the Division of Distance Learning. So keep your eyes peeled for that announcement. So that I'm hoping that you'll see this trend of, in DDL, we do take seriously having presidential goals that we work on. As past president, I did fulfill that one duty of putting together our election slate for the most recent elections. Rebecca Reese from Colorado School of Mines will be stepping in as our president as a result of that election. But then I've also tried to assist the division however necessary. On my plate this summer is doing an analysis of bylaws across the divisions to help our division with revising bylaws, and then supporting Florence through her webinar initiative. I've been behind the scenes grabbing those recordings, putting the splash screens on them so that we can support one another and still look great as a division.
Awesome. Wow. Impressive list of accomplishments for the two of you. So which benefits do you see from your involvement with AECT and DDL so far?
Okay, and I tried to write down a list. So I have 4 written here. I think the big one is networking. As a grad student, when I started coming, and you get to meet some of the big names, and they are like authors of the books you read, but then they're real people, and they're like down to earth, and they're willing to sit down and have a conversation with you. So just meeting them, and also others, peers and other faculty, other researchers has been the best. And and I have to make a plug here for PIDT, which is like connected to AECT, and AECT is big, right? So I've also gone to a couple of PIDTs, and I've really got to know people. It's much smaller group, and especially being in academia, the networking is really important because we need external letters. When we do tenure or when you go up for full, and getting to know these people who you have not worked closely with, but then, they get to know you as a person, and they would take the time to do this for you. So I think that's one of a very big benefit, I would say. And, I would do the same for somebody else who asked me. And I've already started doing it. So, so I think that networking is a big one. The second one I have on my list is mentorship and mentoring. So you all have mentors within your own university, but this is another set of mentors that you could get through AECT. There's a variety of mentoring programs. And they can match you with a mentor, or you can even have informal mentors. So, first you receive the mentoring, but then, as you grow, you are ready to mentor others. So it's a give and take, and, so I think that's been a very big benefit for me. And I've met so many really wonderful people who mentored me and who I've been able to mentor now. Research collaboration, this is the best. A lot of us are in small programs where you may not have a big team to collaborate with, but then you meet these wonderful folks at AECT, and we are in different schools, but we speak the same language, and we have same research interests, and we're ready to collaborate. I've got several publications like that, working with other AECT folks. I can name several, but so that's a wonderful way to meet others you want to collaborate with. And so I'll stop at 3 for now. Yeah.
I'll actually play off a little bit of what Florence was sharing. The networking component is huge. So she referenced tenure and promotion. Since we're both tenure track faculty, that is something on our minds. So, and I don't think I've been able to formally congratulate you. Congratulations, Florence, on making full professor.
Thank you, Tanya.
My packet is in my dean's office now because I'm already up for tenure at Idaho. I brought my years of credit with me from Wyoming. And I can remember being a first and second year faculty member, and listening to my mentors at my institution, listening to my department chair, and just talking with full professors, because those really are your sources of wisdom at your universities, if you will. They've seen the processes. They've been around the block a little bit. They know how the university's been run. And one of the things that I was terrified is I don't want my packet to go out for review and the person to write a letter and the first sentence says, I don't know this person and I've never heard of their work. That is honestly, and I watched it happen, actually. I've seen it happen. I've read those external letters. And my first thought is, wow, are you doing your job? Because you don't have to be a leader of a division in AECT to network and have people know who your work, what your work is about and what you're doing. So that was one of the reasons I wanted to make sure I did get to know people in DDL and in other divisions. But focusing in on DDL specifically, this is the other piece I'll talk about with networking. And Florence, you may find yourself in the same situation often. Somebody will come to me and say, oh, well, you're the technology person, so you must know how to fix my computer. Not usually. But you know everything there is to know about this topic. Well, yeah, I can tell you a lot of general research about distance learning. I can tell you about trends, but I'm not necessarily the expert that you need to talk to with this question. I know them, though, because of the distance learning division. Yes, the tech winch syndrome, absolutely, Kay. And in my case, twice now this has popped up. Somebody wanted to know about K-12 teacher preparation for online schools, virtual schools. And I'm not your gal for that. That's not my research space. I'm aware of the literature. I stay up on it as much as I can, but that's not my expertise. However, let me connect you with my great friend, Jared Borup, over at George Mason University, because that is his research expertise. And he'll give you some fantastic information. Or we were looking at some virtual school preparation in Wyoming when I was there. And I was supervising some of our graduate student interns who worked with the Department of Ed there. In this case, somebody said, well, we were reading some literature from a Dr. Michael Barber. Oh yeah, the greatness. I love my Mike. You want me to set up a meeting with him? I can totally do that. A, he went to Georgia and got his PhD from Georgia, and he's one of our alums. So he and I have that connection. But B, I interact with him through DDL at AECT all the time. So that networking piece also helps me look good to my partners in the community, my partners in the state, and my leadership at my institution when they have a question, and I can connect them with the person who knows.
Great points, great points. And so based on your experience with DDL, if you could tell us what is the primary focus of DDL, and if you think that there's more than one, feel free to share them as well.
I think we ask ourselves that question all the time, don't we, Florence?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
One of the things that we see ourselves doing, and that's why you see Florence's fantastic emphasis on the space that she and Lucas are creating. How do we support our members through that collaboration component? Because like she mentioned, I think the anecdotal title I put on it, sometimes we're islands in a stream. At U of I, we have faculty teaching online, but we don't have faculty who are devoted to that as either their sole focus or a research area. They may have taken a workshop with somebody on how to design a class once. If I want to collaborate around distance learning, I'm going to have to come back to DDL and look for somebody to do that. And so I think that that's where we do see ourselves serving the membership the most, is how do we take this umbrella and how do we connect people who are doing K-12 online and let them work together? How do we take people who are focusing on instructional design for for-profit institutions online and connect them together? At Jacksonville last fall, I was meeting with one of the faculty members at Piedmont College there in Georgia. And he was telling me about his work, and I was like, I need to connect you with somebody, because he didn't have anyone at his institution, and I had a friend at another institution who doesn't have anybody to collaborate with. So let's see if we can matchmake here. Florence?
And I think Tanya slightly touched on this earlier. And, you know, we are a division. We don't exist just by ourselves. You know, we have such a close connection with all the other divisions. So, and I try to look up, you know, our description, and this is what it says. DDL represents members with interests in the full range of distance learning technologies. And, you know, that's the world we live in these days. not that there's no standard training happening, but there's such a heavy focus on distance learning. So we get to collaborate with a number of folks across divisions. So it could be design heavy, it could be a focus on development, it could be emerging technologies, it could be teacher head focus, but as long as there's the distance learning component. So that's where we come into play. And again, it's division of distance learning, so not necessarily just online learning. Distance learning could mean more than online learning. So
I'm so glad you said that. I was recently talking about this challenge with how do we get education into our prison systems.
Yeah.
And most prisons do not allow full internet access because of state policy and local policy. So simply putting a course online doesn't mean that an inmate who is perhaps in on a lesser charge could graduate with a degree in that field because their access is restricted.
Yeah.
When I worked as an instructional designer for a state agency, our biggest client was actually the Department of Corrections, and we had probably 300 inmates a year completing our certification course to be a wastewater treatment operator.
Wow.
And we would mail our books to the prisons, and they would take their tests and mail them back. And I had to process a lot of that when I worked in that capacity. So I'm still very aware that it might be 2018, but correspondence courses are still necessary in certain contexts.
Yeah, you're right. We started with the radio, correspondence, television.
And that's one of my recent pubs. I actually worked with a colleague to extend the MOOC literature and say, MOOCs didn't just magically appear. Let's talk about educational radio as the first MOOC.
Yeah, exactly. So, and we don't know where we'll be next 5-10 years, right? But then it's still, being involved in this area of distance learning. I think that's what's more important.
Awesome. So my last question to you guys, I know you've mentioned a few of the projects, such as the collaboration projects between members, but I wonder if you would have anything else to add about the current initiatives and projects in DDL and how people could get involved in those.
And I think, yeah, you're right. I mentioned as we talked about our roles, we talked about the projects. So the two things, I mentioned, one is the webinar series that we just wrapped up. I posted the link to the YouTube playlist that Tanya created. So if any of you want to go back and watch any of the videos, you can. A very interesting list of speakers. Several of them are our very own AECT, researchers. And then I also shared the link to the form that Lucas created for identifying collaborators. I created that. The third thing, and I didn't talk more about it. One of the initiatives or projects that I got to work on this year was also, Tonia did this needs assessment and got this awesome data from our membership. So it's very important to periodically survey our membership to find their needs. So I got the access to the data set and I looked at it, did a very careful analysis. And so some of the projects that we're doing actually came out of it. And the third one actually that was listed as my goals, which already got taken care of, was, we have a lot of awards we give out, but then some of our members pointed out that some of our award descriptions could be updated, and looks like it was already done before, I took over. So that's something we've done also. And then, there's still areas where we could work on. Right now our awards don't have any monetary benefits. We give out certificates. So, it's always nice we can identify sponsors, and so those are areas that we still have to work on, but those are tough areas. And there's and Tonia, maybe you remember, I forgot the one about the matching goal that we had to find, to establish an award, right, for DDL. So that's something we've talked about, but we haven't succeeded yet. So we're just waiting for somebody to give DDL a ton of money.
So this is where I'll try to extend what Florence was talking about. In some respects, we're the first line of notification from the AECT Executive Board. If there's a project going on at the AECT level and they need input from the divisions or they need volunteers, AECT has been working on trying to standardize some of its processes, in this case, like nominations to committees. At one point, anybody, and in many cases, you can simply say, I'm interested, and then we'll fit you into the process. But this just recently happened. We had an individual who was interested in serving on the ethics committee contact me. And she was looking, how do I get active? So I went finding out who's the current chair of the committee and how do we recommend getting this person as a member of the committee. So I was told who the new chairperson is, and I contacted the chairperson and was informed that they do have a nomination process and that the person would be represented or would be nominated as a DDL member. So then I reached out to Florence and said, we have a member who's interested in, could, as the president, because it wouldn't be appropriate for me as the past president to make this nomination. So I filled in Florence, and she then sent the nominating email, and that member is now a member of the ethics committee as well. Recently, we were asked to provide names of individuals interested in reworking AECT standards. And they're starting with an assessment committee to decide, do we need multiple sets of standards to address the different constituents and stakeholders that we deal with, because standards would probably look different if you're developing corporate training versus K-12 training and K-12 education resources. Through that process, our board rep, Linda Campion, came to the board and said, we need to nominate people, start thinking about individuals. And we kicked around a bunch of names, and then I reached out to folks and said, your name came up, are you interested? So that's where being an active member plays, because if there's a need to fill like this, we're going to get asked. And if we don't know, then we're going to put out a general call to the membership, is anybody interested in? But if we already know individuals working in a specific space, then we can simply go straight to them and say, are you interested in serving in this capacity? And it gives you different entry points. The other component to this is, as a graduate student, the mentoring component is huge. I'm sure at some point last year, Lucas was like, why on earth did I ever tell Tanya I wanted to help her? Because I delegated so many tasks to him. And it was everything from researching websites where we could sell t-shirts to researching places to buy custom candy bar wrappers for the convention. And he would go research it and send me an email with that report, and then I could use that information to get it together. So there's different types of mentoring that happen. And then trying to turn just what seems like a random errand into an actual mentoring opportunity. Like, why would this help you? How would this help you in the future? I do more swag ordering as a faculty member than I ever thought I would. And it's because we randomly get a donor who gave us $500 and we can buy Post-its. Well, maybe there's something other than Post-its we can buy, so let me go research it. Working with Lucas in that capacity was very helpful. But then this last piece that Florence mentioned, we're trying to find different ways to diversify the revenue stream of DDL. Once upon a time, we had some members who got together and they wrote a book and they published it. And rather than they taking the royalties went to the division. And then those members were given an in-kind contribution within the organization. So I'll speak to my own personal experience here. I am assisting AECT as a co-editor of a book series to be published by Routledge. Individual authors will negotiate their royalty contract with Routledge. As a series co-editor, we've negotiated with AECT to get lifetime membership paid. So that'll be my benefit in kind. Many authors will do this. They'll say, can I get a lifetime membership to AECT, or can I get a couple of years of convention registration? And that's my benefit for writing this book. And then from now until perpetuity, or whatever the contract is, 10 years, 25 years, the proceeds or the profit from that publication get fed to the organization. And there's all kinds of fun conversations about tax reasons why you would do that. But in doing so, one of our members saw fit to create a revenue stream that supported the division, that let us, once upon a time, we could actually pay for really cool plaques and little statues for our awards. But you got to have money for that stuff. So we're trying to look for members who are interested in those types of arrangements, but then also trying to find that person who wants their name or their organization's name on an award, and they provide an endowment that goes to the foundation. And then we oversee selection of that award, that kind of thing.
Awesome. I also shared the link to the DDL t-shirts in the chat in case anybody is interested in purchasing and wearing your DDL t-shirt. It's been fun to work on that project with Tanya. Well, I'm out of questions now. I would like to open up for Q&As from the participants.
Actually, Lucas, I think you mentioned the last one. How can people get involved with DDL?
Oh, right.
Briefly touch on that.
Okay.
So, we have a great community on Facebook. So we share a lot of resources. So I would say stay actively involved. If you have questions, you're welcome to post. If you have resources, you want to share with others, that's a great place to share. At the conference, we host member meetings. We combine it with our awards reception, but come get to know us. Those are great places to hang out with, and so that's when you also know about what are upcoming positions that are going to be open, for election. So member meeting, and also at the reception, right? We all have our tables, and come see us. So just get to know us, and if you're interested in running for any positions that are open, you could do that. Run for election finally. You don't want to start off with positions that are too time demanding, but there is a place for everyone. There is a role for everyone. So communicate to us what you would like to do. And again, I don't know, the three of you logged in, what your future goals are. I didn't ask that, but if you wish to continue in academia, service is a big part of our field. Again, where I am, it's 40% teaching, 40% research, and 20% service. So and I think it's a great course, to the field, to the community, and you're serving. So if at all you're interested, come see us. So there is opportunity for you to collaborate.
Awesome. Does anybody have any questions for Dr. Dousay and Dr. Martin? You can either use your mic or type them in the chat.
Hi, this is Kay. I'm just going to ask you, what's the one thing that we as brand new doctoral students should go to when it comes to the distance learning area? What's the not miss thing?
The welcome reception.
Okay.
And I say that blatantly because the welcome reception is where you will meet the current board. You will run into other members. We always have some sort of game or giveaway. All the divisions will. But the welcome reception is a way to get connected and to get your name on the list of saying, I want to help in some way.
Okay.
And that's where we can connect you. Like if you wanted to start reviewing for awards, you could certainly do that. We could potentially find a mentor to help. If you wanted to co-coordinate one of the awards with a faculty member, we can make those connections at that welcome reception.
Yeah.
Very cool.
And
Thanks.
Kay, another thing you could also do, if you're not at AECT regularly, sign up to review for conference proposals. It's a good experience before you really start reviewing for journals. What we do at the conference level is we make sure that doc students and then faculty or practitioners are kind of in the mix together when we seek reviews. So those are good opportunity too, and you also get to see what type of work is being submitted. What does quality proposal look like, and you'll get that experience too. So I would say as a doc student, that's a very good step to start with as well.
Thank you.
And Kay, one more thing. This year, the GSA is going to host a session where the division liaisons from last year will be talking about each division for incoming GSA liaisons. So if you're interested in learning more about the divisions from the perspective of the graduate students who served the division, you can attend that session.
Thank you, guys.
And Lucas, that might be a good plug for that because they'll be looking for a new group of graduate students willing to run for a liaison position. This is where I'll switch hats really quick and talk about it from the perspective of being a past something president of GSA. The liaison program started about 2 years before I took office, and I think I was the 4th or 5th president of GSA. That was actually started by a former intern class. And the liaisons were intended to give graduate students a voice on each of the division boards. In some cases, the divisions elect their own, but the majority, the liaison, is an elected position through GSA. And the expectation is that you will attend both the GSA monthly meeting of that board and the board meeting for the division to which you're the liaison, so that you're reporting back anything that will be of interest to graduate students, whether it's a call for participation or just, hey, here's an opportunity coming up. We want to make sure grad students are aware of this.
Awesome. Any other questions?
Oh, another thing, since they're thinking of questions, another thing that I totally enjoyed last year at AECT was the showcase. I think it was was it the Emerging Technology Showcase?
So that was actually started by Tudelani Asino, and I think we're trying to hand it off to Emerging Learning Technologies. That was a dream that Tudelani and I had when we were still grad students. And so he's been the man behind the scenes putting that together. That's a great place to go see the different tools that are out there. Last year, Jen Weibel and I had our 3 doodle pins, and we were doing an activity that we're now collecting data on. There's always VR and AR stuff there. I'm going to see if I can I think we had a submission. I need to double check. We've got some new augmented reality technologies that I was thinking about bringing.
Very nice.
Awesome.
Yeah. I totally enjoyed that. Yeah, because you may not have access or a chance to play with some of those gadgets yet, but that's a great place to go and check them out. So if you don't have that on your calendar, make sure you look for it.
That's a great point, because it's set up kind of like a round table, but more open space.
Yeah.
You just table hop and look for a technology that's interesting to you.
Yeah.
And sometimes you end up in a conversation about, how can I use this in my research?
Yeah, yeah.
Awesome.
Mina and Pauline, you have no questions for us?
Actually, I have questions. I'm waiting for Pauline. I'm wondering, because she's the first year, I'm trying to wait for her. And then my question is about the grant writing. So I know that right now there are many grants opportunity in K-12, especially in computer science education. So I'm wondering, is there any opportunity for us to easily to get a funding in the online distance learning area? Thank you.
I can tell you my perspective, and Tonia, you can add. It's not easy, just going straight cut online learning is hard. So you have to combine with, the content experts, and a STEM, there's a lot of money for STEM education, that. And then also K-12. There's more money for K-12 than for higher ed. So that combination is important. But then, as online learning experts or instructional design experts, even, there is room for us to collaborate with them. And write proposals and come up with these innovative strategies. So I'm actually a PI on a grant right now, and it just came out of a casual conversation. And I'm collaborating with cybersecurity education experts, actually cybersecurity experts, and we're building modules on digital citizenship. So, but we're building these online modules. So just combining that, the way that you innovatively bring in the team together and you propose is always makes a difference. So I have another proposal that's under review. Again, I don't know whether it's going to get funded, but it's on adaptive learning. So just finding what's next and what might the funders be interested in. And I'm talking primarily with reference to NSF. But again, there are other funders too. IES look for very research-focused proposals, but IES also look for a lot more experienced folks. Okay, and then there's Spencer Foundation. There's a lot of other funders out there. So it's just the team that you're on makes a difference. Making sure everybody has the skill, and it's a team of you, because you're not going to do this by yourself. So having the right content expertise and, the innovative idea, and then we have a very important role to play. That's what I'm figuring out. Again, I don't call myself as a learning scientist. I call myself as a learning technologist or an instructional technologist. But even for us, I think we play an important role because we can work with any content area, right? Matter of fact. So I got called last week to sit on a proposal for the CDC, Center for Disease Communicate. What does the C stand for?
Centers for Disease Control.
CDC. So it's with health and human, services related. So you could be working between different colleges, the engineering folks, the computer science folks. So we do have those valuable skills. So, even though if you're not able to focus entirely on online learning, just combining with the others, I think that's a big benefit.
I'm going to kind of fine tune Florence's advice. And Lucas, you can tell me if they're still teaching this at Georgia. Our faculty at Georgia, when I was in the doc program, kind of spun grant writing in a particular way that helped me make sense of it. The odds of you finding an RFP that is exactly what you're interested in are pretty slim, like less than 1% of a chance. But the odds of you finding grant opportunities or being invited to collaborate on a grant opportunity where you have a piece of expertise to share, and maybe you can kind of piggyback what you're interested in to meet your agenda, that's going to be far more likely. And I have discovered that to be true. And I think going into it with that mindset has helped me. Do they still teach all that, Lucas?
I haven't taken any specific classes about it. I learned that from working with research groups here at EGA, but not specific.
I feel like it was echoed, and it was never in a formal class, but it was echoed throughout all of the different activities that Career and Information Studies hosts, because it's the other education, if you will. It's not the formal. In doing that, I've learned so much. And I was chuckling when you said that there's so many grant opportunities related to STEM and computer science, because that's my life at the moment. And I'm coordinating a team with 4 faculty members in computer science in Idaho, 1 faculty in computer science at the University of Texas at Dallas, the STEM initiatives coordinator for the university, my Dousay Center director, who's my counterpart, and 1 of our faculty members in career and technical education. So I like the way that Florence was talking about how we're kind of the linchpin. We bring all these people together and help them think about its relationship to learning and achievement and application and technical glitches, all the things that we live and breathe. In that case, my interests are in designing computer science endorsement opportunities for pre-service teachers and in-service teachers coming back for that endorsement. How do we design meaningful learning experiences for them in computer science without trying to force fit teachers into computer science or take engineers and force fit them into teaching? Whereas my colleagues in computer science have completely different research agendas, and they're more interested in the algorithms behind this tutoring system. So we each have our interests that are related to this project, and we're making them work with this project as the vehicle, if you will. In respects to distance learning, that's where connecting at the convention comes in handy, finding other people who are interested in that area. And I'll kind of piggyback this into Pauline's question in the comments. Connecting as a graduate student with faculty members to create those homegrown mentoring opportunities. So finding faculty at other institutions who have something to contribute to your development that your own faculty either do differently or just aren't necessarily able to give of that time right now. It's not that we don't want to, it's just that there's a finite number of hours in the day. In this case, I cannot tell you how many mentors in AECT I have. And as one of the mentoring workshop leaders, I like to echo the sentiment. We have different mentors for different reasons and different seasons. So you may have a mentor that you work with just on one project or through the lifespan of your career, depending on your need and that role that they fill. And I think that through the division and through pairing up with other faculty, we can help you get those mentoring experiences. So to specifically answer Pauline's question, Florence, I think we need to connect Pauline with Larissa.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
And Larissa will work with you to both connect you with the award coordinator for the Crystal Award, but then likely partnering you with one of our longtime reviewers who is more than happy to meet with you and talk about what goes into reviewing this proposal. What are we looking for? How do we apply the rubric?
So Pauline, can you, if you don't mind, can you send us an email? And I think we have our, Lucas, did you have our email addresses? We can type it in. Yeah. Then we'll make sure that it gets taken care of. Yeah.
Thank you for doing that.
And the Crystal Award is a really fun one to take a look at the really awesome things that are coming out.
Yes, I volunteered to review awards myself, so we'll get the email in the future, I guess.
And don't be afraid to near peer mentor. So by near peer, I mean you seek out more advanced graduate students to mentor you, because you'll find that eventually you'll be that near peer mentor for other graduate students.
True. All right, I think we're almost out of time. We could have time for one more question at the most. We only have 2 minutes left, or less than that.
Can I have a question? It's a little bit about the kind of academic. So did you find any like instructional design principles specifically for online learning? Like there are many instructional design models for general classroom learning. Right now I'm trying to write something to review on that. I searched articles, but I didn't find any like specifically articles that talk about that. I tried to review the previous instructional design model generally, so I'm trying to ask some advice from.
So
also.
More about, go ahead, Tanya.
I threw in the Morrison, and I think that's the current authorship order, Morrison, Ross, Kalman, and Kemp. Gary Morrison, retired from Old Dominion. His model, or their model, it's been revised over the years, they do reference technology and online development in their model. Others, Florence?
Nothing specifically for online. You know, I think most of the ID models could be adapted, right? It's irrespective of the delivery method, because your solution comes at the end. So, you know, systematically, you should be able to use any ID model or ID process to come to your solution. But I would say there's a lot of recommendations for strategies when you design online learning. I think, you know, look at IRR ODL, Computer Ed, Distance Ed, you know, those are the journals, right? Look for strategies. If you want specific information on strategies, I can send to you. And, you know, it's not like, you know, I also like a couple of books that I use. I teach design and development of online learning in my class, but I haven't found like a model that is really tested and grounded in empirical research yet for online learning. I use Cohen Rawson's book, which is more like, you know, from the practitioner-based approach, but I totally enjoy their practical recommendations. I use that as the lead book in the class that I teach.
So this is where I'll also put on my other hat, since I co-wrote the 5th edition of the Survey of ID Models with Rob Branch. I just put a link in the chat box. This is a chapter that I wrote for Rick West's new open access textbook. And I kind of talk about the approach of models. What's interesting in this, though, is Table 1 actually details every model that we've ever covered in the Survey of ID Models book. And it gives you the original reference if you would like to go find it. So that'll give you a starting point. But I love what Florence said, finding an empirically tested instructional design model. That animal is kind of rare, if existing at all, as a unicorn. Because what we do know from the research is that even if you're following a model, you're not going to follow it step by step. You're going to customize it for your context and for your needs. And oftentimes you're going to mishmash models together to make what you need for your context. But when you're looking for guidance, drawing from different models will come into play. And it's mostly in strategy development, like Florence said, that you would make those accommodations for an online learning context.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I tell my students. You know, models are not rules to be followed. So it's to give us guidance. And, you know, from where you are, whether you're a novice to an expert, you might need less guidance to follow some of these steps. But, you know, but there are some great models out there. So.
And that's where I found a fantastic quote from Dr. Kent Gustafson. He is the originator of the Survey of Instructional Design Models project. And I found this in the first edition. So I'm trying to revive this quote. It's actually a figure in this chapter. ID models are like mushrooms. They appear in all manner of strange locations, not to mention shapes, sizes, and degrees of toxicity. Take that for what you will.
Funny, yeah.
Okay, that one actually made me laugh out loud. I just didn't mute for that one, but no, that's beautiful, and thank you so much for these.
Oh, here's one quote. It's not about ID models, but this is so funny. It comes out of an evaluation textbook, and it's one of my favorites. Collecting data is like collecting garbage. You better know what you want to do with it before you collect it. Literally, yeah. I tell my evaluation students that.
Well, thank you so much for the webinar, for attending, Dr. Dousay and Dr. Martin. It's been a very fruitful discussion. Thank you to the attendees as well. Thank you for your questions. If you have any questions about the DDL or the division, feel free to reach out to us. You can also reach out to me. I'm going to enter my email in the chat. And I think that's it.
Thank you, Lucas. Thank you for inviting us. And thank you all. Good luck to everybody.
Have a good rest of the day.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.